Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining me again. My name is Joyce, and today we're going to talk about Singer Castle on Dark Island in the Thousand Island chain of the St. Lawrence Seaway. You can stay at Singer Castle. If you are so inclined, you can rent out the luxury suite for $700 a night. It sleeps up to six. Dark Castle Island, Singer Castle, is attributed to the industrialist Frederick Gilbert Bourne, who is most notably recognized as the fifth president of the Singer Corporation, as in Singer sewing machines. Singer bought this island and developed this property to turn it into another hunting retreat and lodge. He already had one estate that he used for private hunting near Montauk. We won't even go anywhere near that. But he was also part of the Jekyll Island Board. And of course, we know the story goes that Jekyll Island was developed as a private hunting club. He was part of that board, had a cottage there, was part of that entire reset plan. Mr. Bourne bought Dark Island in 1902 and sought developing what became known as the Towers. It is only in recent times that it has been referred to as Singer Castle, that being part of the current promotional plan. What the Towers is known for are dungeons, underground tunnels, and authentic suits of British armor. The reset architect Mr. Bourne chose was Ernest Flagg, who lived between 1857 and 1947. And if you do a little research into these reset fellows, there's always interesting dynamics in the numbers of their lifespans like that. Dark Island is part of the lower portion of the Thousand Island chain near Chippewa Bay. Technically, it's part of the town of Hammond, New York. And story goes, it's the only existing castle that was completed. There are other castles. I had the opportunity to take a river cruise up the Hudson through a portion of the Erie Canal, out across Lake Ontario, and then up the Thousand Islands and the St. Lawrence to Montreal, and then finally we ended in Quebec City. So I went past these islands. I went past many places, West Point. I went past and stopped. Actually, we didn't go past, we stopped at Bolt Island and spent an afternoon there, which I did a little video on the other day. And we went past Singer Island too. There are other islands that are there. I can't attest to their being completed or not, but there certainly are other islands because you know, of course, the St. Lawrence Seaway is a completely man-made filled body of water. There was a river there, but most of the St. Lawrence as we know it is dammed, terraformed, lots beneath it, lots, whole towns. And what we see on the surface now, there's much more beneath that too. So anyway, we'll leave that there. We are to believe that the construction of Singer Island at the design of Mr. Ernest Flagg occurred between 1903 and 1905, being built at the same time as Bolt Castle. Bolt being the castle of the general manager of the Waldorf Astoria. More to come on that. Singer Island was a 4-story home with a 5-story clock tower. A 5-story clock tower in the middle of a massive flooded bay. Why on earth would there be a need for a clock tower with a 6-foot clock face in the middle of a bay? There are 3 boathouses and a 2-story ice house. A 2-story ice house. I guess that's a lot of entertaining. There were 28 rooms. Now, a little bit about Mr. Flagg, the architect. Not only did he build Singer Castle, or so we're told, but he came into notice for a variety of other things. He built Singer Tower, the headquarters of the Singer Corporation in New York City, which was at the time of its construction and for almost a year, the tallest building in New York City and the country at 47 stories. Mr. Flagg was an advocate of urban reform and architecture's responsibility in that urban reform. He was born in Brooklyn. His father is noted as being an Episcopal priest and portrait painter who just so happens to have done the portraits of many judges that now sit in the New York Court of Appeals, as well as the Commodore himself, Cornelius Vanderbilt, whose portrait sits in the director's room of Grand Central Station. Mr. Flagg Sr. was married 3 times. Do priests get married 3 times? I don't know. And produced 6 children. There was Jared Flagg, who was an investor and convicted of a Ponzi scheme with Daniel Morgan, who had served as U.S. Treasurer during the presidency of Grover Cleveland. There was Sister Louise, who married Charles Scribner of Scribner Publishing fame, and through whose alliance Mr. Flagg was able to get all of those commissions and build all those buildings attributed to the Scribner Empire today. There was also Sister Rosalie, Brother Childs, and then our little Ernest. Now, we're told that Ernest left school at 15 to be an office boy on Wall Street. Okay, well, that's not that unusual, certainly for the times. His father and older brothers apparently were very active in real estate and handy as owners of property. So he was able to learn from them business, bookkeeping, and such. Apparently, he also learned how to design buildings because he is noted as working with architect Philip Hubert, who was known for the design of churches and duplexes, and was able to design a duplex with Mr. Hubert. In 1891, he started his own practice in New York City, where he joined with John Prentice Benson, forming Flagg and Benson. And together, they are attributed with designing St. Luke's Hospital. In 1894, he is listed as joining up with Walter B. Chambers, who he had met in Paris during his École des Beaux-Arts days. Oh, I'll talk more about that. And together, Flagg and Chambers are attributed with designing the Corcoran Gallery in D.C., where I've spent much time, the chapel at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, beautiful chapel, and the Pomfret Military School in Connecticut. Now, he had a very prestigious cousin by marriage. That was Cornelius Vanderbilt, the Commodore. Cousin Cornelius saw the promise in this young boy and got him into the École des Beaux-Arts and paid for his entire tuition. Between 1889 and 1991, we are told that 21-year-old Ernest was in Paris studying at the École. Thanks, Uncle, Cousin Vanderbilt. A very convenient cousin to have. The Singer Building, we are told, was designed in 1897. The tallest building in New York at the time. Ernest married Margaret E. Bunnell in 1899. Over the span of his career, he's attributed with over 30 buildings that include the Dakota, the famous apartment complex, which we are told was commissioned by Edward Cabot Clark, one of the co-founders of the Singer Corporation. The Press Building at Princeton University, along with 3 other buildings at Rutgers, also in New Jersey, St. Luke's Hospital, as noted, the Western Union Telegraph Building in New York City, the Art Students League, which it's now called, it was called the American Fine Arts Building in New York City at the time, the Plaza Hotel, the Waldorf Hotel, and the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. Also, the Cherokee Apartments in New York City. Now, as I said, he was a reformist. He was part of the 1960 New York zoning bill that changed construction in New York City to allow more opportunity for natural light and air to move between buildings. He bought 200 acres on Staten Island, where, besides building his own home, he also explored his Flag Systems Homes test, which was part of his reform idea. These were small homes, test homes, built to put everyday middle-class working people into safe, fine, sustainable properties, low to the ground, with stone walls, natural insulation, steep roofs, ridge dormers to allow for light and ventilation, round-capped chimneys, very distinctive style, but also an interesting tweak on the physics involved. The fireplaces were stone and copper. Stone and copper. Stone and copper. That's a battery. The houses were stone and cement, Tartarian style, naturally cool and insulatingly warm. They were built on a modular plan with a cottage feel. Exterior concrete walls were faced with natural stone. No basements or attic because he saw those as unnecessary cost. Ventilation and natural light were everything. The bathrooms were actually raised off of the ground to make room for the pipes and easier access after the fact. The dormer windows, as mentioned, allowed for light and ventilation. Instead of gutters, there was cement under the eaves, which would allow for the rainwater and organic material to fall and catch and then run down natural inclines. Interesting. Mr. Frederick Gilbert Bourne was also a Commodore, though we don't consider him the Commodore. The Commodore is Cornelius Vanderbilt. He lived from 1853 to 1919. He was the fifth president of the Singer Corporation, serving from 1889 to 1905. And he's attributed with making the business, quote, perhaps the most modern multinational industrial enterprise of any nationality, end quote. He was born in Boston. And he was also the son of a reverend. He went to work at 14. Since his father died, widowing his mother and leaving them alone with his younger sisters. Boy, this is common. Boy, this is common. He went to work for Atlantic Submarine Wrecking Company at 14. Then he became a bookkeeper and clerk at the Mercantile Library. He was very active in the Mendelssohn Glee Club, where he met Alfred Coning Clark, who became a philanthropist and patron of the arts, the son of Edward Cabot Clark, a lawyer, businessman, investor, and co-founder of Singer Corporation. Singer being named after Isaac Merritt Singer, founder. Apparently, all their lives, both Clark Jr. and Bourne enjoyed singing. And Clark Jr. and Bourne are noted to have a very close relationship all of their lives. It was through this relationship with Clark Jr. that Clark Sr., co-founder of Singer, invited Mr. Bourne into the Singer real estate company, which owned several valuable parcels of Manhattan lands, including the land the Dakota was built on. Senior Clark commissioned the Dakota, and Ernst was brought on to manage that design and construction. Now, Clark Jr. continued to sing, was known as a baritone, and often traveled to Norway to spend time with Lawrence Severin Skugart, his lover, and also well-known tenor. Clark was married, living a fully outed double life. Clark Jr. would send Bourne to Singer board meetings in his absence. Alfred Cumming Clark, Clark Jr., was a patron of the arts and philanthropist. Family man while in New York City, living in the Dakota, and a libertine when in Norway with his male lover. He even purchased a home in Norway near that family's property. Alfred gave his son the middle name Severin, which was also the middle name of his Norwegian lover, Lawrence Severin Skugart. Clark kept a separate flat in New York City where Lorenz would stay when he came to visit New York. And it was during one of these visits in New York in 1885 that Lorenz contracted typhoid and died. Clark commissioned a $64,000 endowment to the New York Norwegian Hospital in his lover's name. And sculptor George Gray Barnard was commissioned to construct a memoriam for Lorenz's Norwegian grave known as Brotherly Love. Clark became Barnard's lifelong patron after this construction. And an opera known as Brotherly Love debuted in Norway in 2016 about their life. In 1882, the elder Clark passed, and Bourne became the manager of Clark's estate. In 1885, Bourne became secretary of the company, and in 1889, at the age of 38, Bourne became the fifth president and oversaw the construction of the Singer Building. He expanded global production and international sales. He is attributed with the installment payment plans to make Singer sewing machines something that was in every home. Bourne owned several homes. He inhabited the entire first floor of the Dakota. He had a country estate known as Indian Neck Hall in Oakdale, Long Island, next to the estate known as Idle Hour, which belonged to William Kissam Vanderbilt. He had a 375-acre farm near Montauk, which he used as a hunting preserve. He had his Jekyll Island cottage and the Dark Island towers. In 1902, Bourne hired Ernest Flagg to build the towers, which we now know as Singer Castle. In February of 1875, Bourne married Emma Keeler, the granddaughter of Commodore Davidson. All these Commodores, one of the founders of the New York Yacht Club. Oh yeah, that's where they get their Commodore designation. They were parents of 12, Emma and Frederick. 3 died in infancy. Bourne served as Commodore on the New York Yacht Club and the board of the Jekyll Island Hunting Club. New York Yacht Club is another story in and of itself. Key members included Winthrop Aldrich, like the Aldrich plan, Vincent Brooke and James Jacob Astor, Michael Bloomberg, yes, Michael Bloomberg, it's still there, William F. Buckley, the author. I ran into William F. Buckley literally in an elevator at the Waldorf Astoria when I lived there. Walter Cronkite, Jay Gould of railroad fame, J.P. Morgan, the J.P. Morgan, David Rockefeller, FDR, Ted Turner, and of course, Cornelius Vanderbilt. Interesting how many of these names are also part of the Jekyll Island organization. Bourne died in Long Island in 1919, leaving a $25 million estate. And more about the towers. He purchased the island in 1902, wanting a hunting retreat. In addition to his one near Montauk, where he cultivated the game, and serving as a board member of Jekyll Island, he felt it was time to start his own. He read the book Woodstock by Sir Walter Raleigh and was inspired to build a castle just like it. It's a description of Woodstock Palace in Oxfordshire, England. He told his wife Emma he was building a hunting lodge. Can you imagine her surprise at the first visit? Their regular home was Indian Neck Hall in Oakdale, Suffolk County, New York. It is their surviving house in the New York. It is the ninth largest surviving home in the U.S. 438 acres, Ernest Flagg's first construction. 100 rooms, a U-shaped mansion, 900 feet deep, 125 feet long, 3 stories, 75,000 square feet. They moved in 1900. And they named it after the creek that's on the property, Indian Neck. The Castle of Mysteries. We are told was done in 2 years. Constructed while Bolt Castle was also being constructed on Hart Island, a 28-room medieval castle with pink marble fireplaces. Now, Flagg was receiving nightly 7 p.m. readings of Raleigh's Woodstock by Bourne. And he was very inspired by the tales of secret passageways, tunnels, and dungeons. The original Woodstock had been destroyed during the English Civil War, 1642 to 1651, with a new palace being built decades later, Blenheim Palace, where, keeping it in the family, Commodore Vanderbilt's daughter endured a miserable political marriage to the 9th Duke of Marlborough. Commodore Bourne and Commodore Vanderbilt, being long-time Long Island neighbors. 16 men were employed year-round to complete it. Rose quartz used for both this and Bolt Castle, repeatedly quarried from the nearby Oak Island. Spiral spy cases, dungeons, subterranean labyrinths, turrets, towers, and the red roof tiles imported from Spain with copper gutters. You're supposed to believe that tons of stone were quarried over icy water by grateful workers who had been laid off from Bolt Castle after Mrs. Bolt ran off with the chauffeur. And cuckolded Bolt shut the whole thing down. All in the family. It keeps getting better. Yes, George Bolt was the manager of the Waldorf Astoria and the Bellevue Stafford Hotel in Philadelphia, both designed by Ernest Flagg. On the American side of the border, island and castle come into view as one passes Cedar Island. There's a stone boathouse and flagstone steps that leads visitors to a huge wooden door and into a great hall, standing 39 by 33 feet, a vaulted room with ceilings carved by Italian stonemasons, large stone fireplaces with 2 doors. One will lead down into a wine cellar, and one leads up to the kitchen and servants' quarters. The design, layout, and even the 12th century British armor placed to bring Raleigh's book to life. The library is 33 by 18 feet with walnut paneling bookshelves, and a trick handle behind certain books opens a panel next to the library's fireplace that leads into an underground labyrinth. This served both practicality for servants as well as entertainingly or logistically at times for guests. The kitchen views the Canadian shoreline with a dumbwaiter, service rooms, dining room, utility room, pantry, and spiral staircase to a main dining room. A breakfast room and stone and walnut looks with huge Gothic windows out onto the St. Lawrence Seaway. From here, another spiral staircase leads up to the clock tower with a 6-foot clock face. And then to the boathouse with 30-inch thick walls. very insulating. Following then to the ice house and bathhouse, along with numerous outbuildings, all of which are mapped and accessible via the underground tunnels. Hmm. Hmm. Bourne also owned 2/3 of the nearby Ice Island that was used for duck and pheasant hunting and breeding. The trophy room in the castle, reachable from secret passageways, is full of so many kills from this hunting family over the decades. An oval portrait of King Charles II adorns a wall over the marble fireplace, which can be swung open from a secret passageway behind it. A secret passageway from Bourne's office leads to a black gated subterranean dungeon. A trapdoor in a maid's dormitory can be opened from a hinged coat hook down in Bourne's office, believed used for stashing valuables, after a 200,000 diamond theft was discovered from their Indian Neck home. Bourne outlived his wife and passed away in 1919 in his Indian Neck home, leaving a $42 million fortune to be divided equally among 7 surviving children. Though the infighting created such a media blitz about their preference to paying lawyers than actually honoring their inheritances. His daughters, Marjorie and May, brought out their siblings to become the new owners of the towers at Dark Island. In 1921, May and her husband gave Marjorie lifetime use. Marjorie married Alexander Thayer and spent the next 36 summers there. The Thayers allowed the island to be a rum running point from Canada from 1920 to 1933. Also, they made several practical additions on the property. Marjorie had a squash court installed for her very athletic husband. Making use of the 2 boathouses, they enjoyed 3 yachts, 5 motorboats, 3 rowing skiffs, and 3 canoes. Before her death in 1962, Marjorie deeded the island to LaSalle Military Academy for $1, an institution that had occupied her childhood home of Indian Neck since 1925. Just all part of the family's movement of assets. The island ices up from late fall to late spring, so use of the island for regular purposes was challenging, and no doubt had something to do with the underground tunnels. In 1965, LaSalle sold Dark Island to Harold Martin Evangelistic Association. Martin's family name was Martin Georgestadt, so for a time, the island served as a private evangelical retreat known as Georgestadt Castle. During summer months, Sunday services with breakfast was open to the public. In 1985, Martin's health necessitated putting the island up for sale again, and it sold in 2002. During this time, an offer from Michael Jackson was rejected, though the site was used as a location for the filming of The Skulls in 2000. In 2002, Dark Island was purchased for $1.8 million by an investment group set to renovate and open it for tourism under the name of, yes, Singer Castle. They attract 35,000 visitors each season, and the site is very popular for weddings, private tours, and lodging. The renovated Royal Suite, occupying one whole wing of the castle, is available for $700 a night between May and November, sleeps up to 6, and you can request your entire menu of food for your stay, be it one day or you name it. Rumors are that George Bush Sr. haunts an upstairs wing. The castle was also the secret home of President Ulysses S. Grant when he visited the Thousand Islands in 1872. The Thousand Islands. Bolt and Singer castles are the most popular tourist attractions, but there are many more in private use. Scandalous reset architects. An interesting time. The multi-layered, funded industrial magnates, the robber barons. A very interesting time, and just one more story in the last great reset.